let's start with Blue Collar. This film, I saw this on HBO when I was a kid, and it really struck a chord with me because it was about something I had not much exposure to. This is about the working world. This is about how things worked in the late 70s. And it's weird because I think that it was a kind of a statement of like criticism about unions are corrupt and corporations are corrupt. But if you look at it now, part of it is like unions were pretty healthy back then. Everybody was a member of them, and they used to really look out for people back then.
Well, I was thinking they would never make this movie now because unions aren't like a social force the way they were.
That's exactly right. It's a weird kind of like a.
I disagree with that, but they still wouldn't make it now.
Well, yeah, that there's other reasons why, but certainly,
what was that movie with?
I'm not saying they don't have any influence, but they certainly aren't what they were.
Like the antithesis of this movie is like the Norma Ray movie.
Yeah, which is real hopeful, and it's like kind of like a feel-good film about
like
unionization.
Which is mentioned on the Facebook the Wikipedia page for this. They literally talk about Norma Ray in contrast.
Well, it's like when I had a girlfriend for many years, and her father was a guy that would go around and start unions in big companies.
Really,
organizers.
Wow.
And it was like a really positive thing for the most part. Like it was to protect the workers, right? So like this is that weird film where it's the opposite.
Hey, which union did your dad did he work for? You
Oh, I don't know any of the names, but they're all local because he's from here. They're from here.
Because my dad was a union a delegate for the IBEW, the electrical unit, PG&E. He was one of the guys who represented him, and he used to come home and just like rub his hands together and like, we got to fuck these guys over today, and he'd tell them how back then unions back in the 60s were fairly influential. They would kind of stand back and let him do it. It was a real fight back then between management and unions, and he was fighting a good fight for a long time.
Yeah, well, and what's the first thing they're talking about in the union meeting is you're going to go out and you're going to leaflet for fucking this thing we want passed.
Right.
Like that's why unions were so important politically, is because they would show up and do the grassroots work for political movements too. Like it was a one hand washes the other thing with especially democratic politics, where you had a group of people who were willing to go out and put in the fucking work to fight against the money that's coming from the other side.
Right.
Like it was fighting money with people.
Right.
Well,
right. And that's why like cities like Chicago had such strong democratic organizations.
Yeah.
Detroit is a city that's, I don't think they've had a Republican mayor ever. That's the union system followed the Democratic Party in ascendancy.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Paul Schrader for many reasons, as I'm sure most of us are.
Because he's great.
Because he wrote Taxi Driver. Yeah.
And also, I think
I
think the best film that he wrote and also directed is First Reformed from about 3 or 4 years ago.
Is there? I haven't seen that one.
It's good.
It's incredible.
Oh, okay, I'll check that one out.
But I had never seen this. I had never seen this film, so I thank you, Scott, because I think this film is fantastic.
Oh my God, it's so fucking direct, isn't it?
I was so drawn. I was so sucked in.
Is it though?
Okay, Chris.
Well, I'll just say this before we go though. Well, this is his first time directing.
Yeah.
And everyone was literally getting into fistfights and doing cocaine the entire time.
And apparently, Richard Pryor pulled out a gun.
Yeah, I did.
Paul Schrader during this production.
And possibly other people may have pulled guns on other people at various points.
But I will say this though before we move on, I didn't know Richard Pryor could do this. He is fucking amazing in this film.
Yes, he was. You know what? You give him an inch, he'll take a mile. That guy is, comedians, if you do it right, can get great performances out of them. He did fantastic in this.
But I also read that he wouldn't do more than 3 or 4 takes, and if he did, he would start improvising so much that they couldn't use it.
And that's when they got into fights.
No, and Keitel was the opposite. Keitel needed like 5 takes to warm up, and then he was giving you the goods. And so it was. They were
New York versus kind of method thing. This scene behind me was the very last scene they shot in the entire film.
Yeah, because they couldn't get all 3 of them.
These guys couldn't stand each other, and so they set them on a couch and shot this last scene out. And they could barely make eye contact with each other. And it was
I also read that,
by the way.
I also read that Schrader told all of them that they were going to be the star, and that wasn't the case.
So oops.
They were very pissed.
But they were all the star.
And that's true.
It is.
Like
they are. But he said like you're going to be the lead.
Right.
To every single one of them. And then
that's an interesting point, because it would be hard to say who's the main character in this story.
Yafet Koto has a really good interview about this where he says that I knew they were going to make Pryor the black guy, and I knew that they were going to make him the black friend of the white guy. So to be who I am, he became an Italian guy he knew growing up.
Yeah, I read that too. Sense. He was playing an Italian guy as a black guy.
That makes sense.
But he was like the playboy, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Chris,
I mean, look at that bar that he had. That bar was great. Like the leather lined one, like top notch.
Chris, you're making the crucial bar where they made the phone calls and all the stuff.
Oh yeah.
Also, so much cocaine.
No, yeah. The cocaine. Oh my God.
I want Yafet Koto's living room set.
So Yafet Koto's character, he borrowed money from a loan shark to buy all that coke and all that shit for his friends, right? And it came due at a certain point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that dude who basically looks like every gangster in every Scorsese film shows up near the end. But
in his backseat.
But man, it's just like the locations, the way that film was shot, it just felt also gritty and completely real. It was amazing.
Also the credit sequence in the beginning is striking and
that music. Oh my God, it's like a pounding of doom.
I hate the
music.
I hate the music because that's that. It's just that blues.
It's just it's a Bo Diddley thing. But the thing is,
it's right.
It's right.
But I love the visuals. I love the freeze frames and the sort of like the sepia tone that they place upon it. And then it also because it's also a bookend for. No spoilers or whatever, but the end is a freeze frame,
right?
Which is wonderful.
Frames were big in the 70s.
Do you think that Ry Cooder, like Bo Diddley beat, was too overwhelming?
Yes, I think it was too on the nose.
Every time they go on the line, you'd hear that music.
Sorry, hold on 1 second though. Isn't that because it's overdone now?
I'm thinking it's overdone now.
I think at the time when that was done,
now it's a ringtone.
Pretty much.
At the time it was done, it was fucking awesome.
I think that's a valid argument. It's Chris, just like you can't look at it. It's hard to look at it under that lens of 1978 or whenever this was.
Right. Yarian, you were gonna make a point. I'll
get to it. I was actually kind of surprised that Schrader. I've been wanting to see this for a while. It's also the movie that Koto did right before Alien, which was
directly before.
It's a bit loose. I mean, on one hand, this is a movie I think Mikey and Nikki wishes it could have been.
Dude.
But second, it's it takes a while to kind of find.
It's a first feature.
Plot.
Yeah.
Right.
It takes 45 fucking minutes to find a plot.
Yeah.
But the characters are interesting.
Pryor's great. Koto's great. Keitel maybe a little less so.
Yeah.
Like I'm not quite sure.
I think he's kind of just going.
He's that overly wound Italian.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. He's Polish.
Didn't work for me. I thought
he's supposed to be Polish in this movie, but yeah.
He doesn't have the
caricature.
He doesn't. Ed Begley is Ed Begley in whatever he does.
Yeah, he's always Ed Begley. So is Lane Smith. It's always gonna be Lane Smith and everything.
It was cool to see.
You all saw that thing I posted.
Right? I did. Lane Smith's amazing.
The second half of this movie is
3 movies. He's the villain in the same year in major movies, and they're all great villains.
Well, anyway, let me tell you one thing though. I'm John and Jared have read this, but I've been kind of working on a script about. It's a thriller based in the music world, and the tone is very similar to what I want to achieve in that when you start this film, it's kind of silly. It's all a bunch of three kind of guys who are not taking their jobs too seriously. They're partying and having fun, and they don't like their jobs, but they're kind of stuck with it. And then it becomes more and more serious until at about a 2/3 point, it's fucking deadly serious. I love that story about people who just regular people get sucked into something that is way over their heads.
Right.
Also,
And
I think this
that you get that feeling really well, especially that scene where they have all the dossiers on them, where the union guy is saying this guy and this guy and this guy. You realize these guys are fucked at that point, just completely fucked.
But there's also still you realize they're fucked, but there's still people are making moves, right? And
they don't have at that point they had no moves left. They had nothing.
But the people that could bust them are like
they had moves.
And I don't know. I think this is just like right out of the gate, like a testament to how good of a writer Paul Schrader is. I mean, to write from this viewpoint of these three struggling, linemen on an assembly line, like
making these.
Yeah.
Also, I talked over the end of what Chris was saying there, and I would just like to hear the rest of that. Sorry.
Yes, me too.
Wait, what?
I talked over the end of what you were.
No. The other thing I'd throw out there is I think the second half's way better than the first. I think that the transformation that Pryor goes through was one of the best things about the movie. The only other thing I'd throw out is, and I don't know about the rest of y'all. Like I did my 1 year at a sheet metal factory.
Wait, stop right there. Where did you work?
West Oakland, AG Metals, 1984 to 85.
Wow. Jesus Christ!
And, I worked in a print shop.
Yeah, so I have a certain amount of respect for people that actually do real work for a living. What I'll say is the caricature that the foreman is in this at that assembly line, like there was something about that did not feel real to me at all.
I've had shitty bosses like that though.
I worked for when I was 19 for about a year and a half. I worked for a Walmart distribution center, which is where when we were on a big three level conveyor belts, and we had to throw products into on the conveyor belt it was guerrilla work. And
did you guys ever read Ben Hamper's book? The guy who was in Roger and Me. He was the guy who had a nervous breakdown at the end. He wrote a book about working on the line back then. Right. And everything he said in that, and this is published in the early 80s, was exactly like what I saw in this film. There are venal, horrible managers who are like that, who are instructed to kind of follow the bottom line and do just
I don't know.
Quantity.
I thought he fit in this world.
Well, also, the only thing I throw out there is to be. Maybe this is me thinking the way it's supposed to be. To be in a job like that, you should have come up from having to do the job that you were now managing the guys who were doing that job.
Maybe he did.
He was.
Yeah, some people
he
get
was
to that.
Skipping around. He'd look at something for half a second and then just crack whip randomly.
Yeah.
Some people get to the point though where they feel like I'm the manager now, so I'm better than you.
Yeah.
It's
also a movie.
You're right. It's a nitpick. Like I said, I thought it was loose. I thought the performances were really good. It was great to see those guys at early stages of their career. But I did think the first half was way weaker than the second.
Also, I already knew that Keitel and Yosef were good actors, but Pryor is the one that blew me away.
Yeah. If he'd kind of tamped it down and not thing is, he was so popular at the time.
He wanted to smoke crack.
See the one sheet for this? It shows him twice. It's like and everybody else is just
and no one else.
And no one else, exactly. So
that's because he had three movies released this year. That year.
Silver Streak and I think something else. But
Silver Streak was 76. And
but either way, that was
he was on fire when this came out, and this movie did not do well. Critically, it did well.
Although he said he was always glad he did it because it was like a substantial performance. Right. Also, show of hands.
Comedy.
I want to show of hands here. Who here has actually been in a union? No, I was.
Wow.
I was in electronics.
Never made a union.
I worked for Dolby Labs. To make a union. I was in Dolby Labs. I was in the electronics union. I was a picker there, and it's interesting because it's but that was the fading days of it. So it's like they didn't do a lot for me
a-
except take stuff out of my paycheck. It's
I
kind of
don't know
sad.
if Walmart has a union. I'm sure they do, but I was just a kid. I remember.
No,
I remember the old guys hated me because when you're 19 years old doing the same job as like a 46-year-old, they fucking hate you.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
which is
I
something that
concur.
Yafet Koto says in this movie, and then it comes back at the end.
And that's exactly what the company wants. To keep you on the line. They'll do anything to keep you on their line. They pit the lifers against the new boys, the old against the young, the black against the white, everybody to keep us in our place. I mean, can't you understand that?
Yeah, that was
Black
a
against
weak
white.
way to end this thing.
What a pathetical statement.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the rest of the movie.
Well, see, that's what's great about.
Well, and
Schrader.
what does Keitel do? He immediately turns around and goes straight in on Zeke with slurs. Like he just comes straight at him with slurs. It's like,
but I think he's at that breaking point. I don't think he. I mean, it's. I think this is a really good study of best friends being torn apart by outside influences. And,
Absolutely.
And it's the time period, but also like I mean, you're right, Tad. But I don't think that it was. I think it was just the circumstances, and it was.
But no one's the hero in this movie. Like this is a
no,
movie
of course.
with no
Everyone is
heroes.
flawed. Everyone is flawed.
Everyone's and compromised. The thing
And-
is, it's
and
all
to that-
it's all out of necessity. They have to do it because that Richard Pryor
It's
said
survival.
literally offered him a better life, and he's going to
survival.
And so I want to. That's a perfect moment for me to bring up my favorite scene in the thing. I mean, it all builds towards that ending, that freeze frame where they're at each other's throats, literally.
Yes.
But
Shit.
what sets that up is that scene where where Pryor's offered the job of foreman, and then they're out in front of his house, and
I
it's
recall.
Keitel saying, "What are you going to do? You're going to sell out?" And he's like, "It's not selling out."
Yes,
man.
I am.
Like, yeah, he's like, "This is my one and only chance to get
that's
Paul
such a great
straightened out
scene.
and get it right. I'm a black man. You're
Yes.
gonna get another chance.
Yes.
I'm not going to get another chance like this. I have to think about my family and
That's
my
such a great scene.
kids." It's a fucking amazing scene because
is.
you, the audience, are going, "He's got a point. He's got a point.
He's got a point.
He's got a point."
He's got a point.
And I didn't know
Yeah,
where my
that's why
loyalties were. And at
this-
the end, when they were at each other's throats, I didn't know where my loyalties were.
This
Dude,
script is
No,
absolutely
John,
brilliant.
that's the prescient scene of the entire film. The guy's talking about Richard Pryor's character is talking about white privilege before we even had that term in the English
Sure.
language.
Sure.
Yeah.
He's saying you don't have to worry about it because you're white. And it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Because
What he said about the cops. He said, "Do
Yeah.
you think I could go to the cops? Do you think they're going to give a shit what I tell them?
I know
And
it was
and
They're going to protect me
powerful
once
shit.
I do?"
And Keitel, with his white privilege, unbeknownst to him, is saying, "Don't sell out, man. You're selling out."
Right.
Well, and also he's saying you're selling out our friend who died.
Right.
Right.
And
right.
and
Pryor's
Pryor's
like,
like, look,
"He's
man, he's
dead."
dead. We can't
Right.
get him back. Like,
Yeah.
I can at least get something for
Right.
me.
So what's the best move to make? And he did. He took the best
Yeah.
move.
God damn,
Yeah,
Paul
well,
Schrader. Imagine get inside African Americans' mind like that and writing this stuff.
Well, that's why,
1978.
like,
Fuck.
part of me is like,
I'm just blown away by that.
I think
He
the
interviewed a
script
bunch
is-
of actual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
he
But
went-
God damn, he found the exact kernel of what the issue was years, decades before.
And if
became
you
an issue.
ask,
Mhm.
this script is so amazing. And if you ask, I think it's Pryor later, many years later, after, well, I don't know how much later, but he was like, he looked upon it back as like, no, that's one of the good, like, that's one of the films that.
That's
has
one of the
a
good ones.
Yeah.
He asked
yeah.
Paul Schrader to direct his autobiography.
Exactly.
Oh,
because of
really? I
this
didn't know
movie.
that.
Yeah.
And Schrader was like, I can't do that while you're alive.
That's exactly
Whoa.
right. That's exactly right. Tad and I, yes, Tad is right. Because because Pryor looked back at this, retrospectively and was like, no, this is fucking brilliant. And Paul Schrader knows what the fuck is up.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's just a
Okay.
brilliant writer. And how can you, and I couldn't help but think of it under the umbrella of today where, I don't know, someone would be bitching now, like, you can't write those black characters. It's,
No,
Fuck
it's
you.
he knew exactly what the problem was. All right, let's stop right here. Jim's been quiet in the corner. Are we doing a Jim's corner thing, or do you want to like just kind of go completely quiet this entire time? All right, good enough. No, he's not going to talk. He's just going to
He's
listen.
taking a vow of silence.
Well, and that's nothing wrong with that. I think Jim and I had a discussion earlier. He's kind of like he wants to be part of this, but he wants to kind of listen more than discuss. I think which is fine.
Jim is going to star in the remake
We
of
even
The Name
get
of the Rose.
You will thumb, right? Okay, good. So are we at thumbs anyway? Anything else?
Sorry. I just want one quick more thing. I do think this movie
down a little bit. Good.
I do think this movie's too long.
It's a bit too long. It could have been like,
given that it takes 45 minutes to find its footing.
Yeah,
and there's a bit with the IRS, and that never really happened in reality.
Which is funny. Which is funny in a certain way, but also just kind of boring.
Is that literally what they did?
No, they did not do that. It was just there for the laugh.
Some of you guys thought Barry Lyndon was too long, and I just disagree with that. So
yeah. Well,
Jim broke his silence there for a second, but of course I couldn't hear him because
that could have been me. I'm sorry.
No, it's because he muted.
I had salami for lunch. It could have been me.